December 18, 1944, to 4:47 p.m., a snow-choked field outside Bastogne, Belgium. Inside the M4 Sherman tank Missouri Belle, Private First Class Dale Hutchkins pressed his face against the gunner's sight, his breath fogging the cold metal. Less than 1,400 yards ahead, a Tiger tank sat motionless in the white landscape like a steel cathedral.
Keep your eyes open, Wee. I hear movement out there. Gunner, load HE and stand by for coordinates.
Its long 88mm gun rotated with mechanical certainty toward him. Nobody spoke. The intercom crackled with shallow breathing. Then Sergeant Bill Cordell's voice came through, flat and final. "Dale, that Tiger fires first. We're dead." The math was brutal. The Tiger's frontal armor, 100mm of hardened German steel, manufactured with metallurgical precision, American factories couldn't match. The Sherman's 75mm gun couldn't penetrate it head-on at any distance, not at 1,000 yards, not at 500, not at point-blank range. The Tiger could kill the Sherman from over a mile away. The Sherman couldn't scratch the Tiger's paint from half that distance. Dale Hutchkins was 22 years old, a farm mechanic from Nebraska with 7 weeks of combat experience. He was about to attempt what every Army manual, every tactical briefing, every bitter lesson of the Ardennes campaign said was impossible: kill a Tiger from the front. The winter of 1944 posed a question that haunted every Allied tanker on the Western Front. Why were American Shermans being slaughtered despite outnumbering German Tigers 10-1? It wasn't courage. American tank crews fought with ferocious determination. It wasn't training. Crews drilled relentlessly. It was physics. Cold, merciless physics. The Tiger S88mm gun could turn a Sherman into burning wreckage at ranges where the Sherman couldn't even return fire. Every engagement followed the same pattern. Tiger spots Sherman, Tiger fires, Sherman dies. By mid-December 1944, the U.S. 9th Armored Division had lost 43 Shermans to Tigers, over 200 men dead or wounded. The M4 Sherman was America's armored workhorse, cheap, fast, reliable. Between 1942 and 1945, factories produced nearly 50,000 of them. One rolled off the Detroit Arsenal tank plant assembly line every 38 minutes at peak production. But mass production demanded compromises. Thin armor, a weak main gun, a tall silhouette that made it a billboard for enemy gunners. The Tiger I was something else entirely. 57 tons of precision German engineering. Its 88mm KWK 36L 56 gun could penetrate 4 inches of armor plate at 2,000 yards. The Tiger's armor wasn't just thick. It was metallurgically superior, hardened through advanced heat-treating processes that Allied industries struggled to replicate. Against that kind of superiority, American doctrine was clear. Avoid frontal engagement. Flank, if possible. Call air support. Wait for dedicated tank destroyers with heavier guns. But in Bastogne, surrounded by the German 5th Panzer Army, during the Battle of the Bulge, there was no air support, no tank destroyers, no flanking routes, just cold fear and Shermans burning in the snow. Dale Hutchkins wasn't supposed to be there. Before the war, he'd repaired tractors on his father's farm outside Lincoln. He understood metal not from textbooks, but from broken plowshares and worn-out crankshafts. He knew how stress fractures formed, how repeated impacts weakened even the strongest steel, how heat revealed hidden weaknesses. He wasn't the hero type, not loud, not reckless, but he was observant. And after watching tank after tank explode into flame, he started thinking. Not like a soldier, like a mechanic. On December 16th, while performing maintenance in sub-zero temperatures, Hutchkins noticed something. Every time his gunner missed a Tiger and the crew tried to correct their aim, they were guessing. The Sherman's gun sight lacked micro-adjustment markings. Each shot was blind. Fire, watch the tracer disappear. Guess where it landed. Guess the correction. Fire again. By the time you got close, the Tiger had already killed you. He thought about his father's welding torch, how you could see exactly where the flame touched, how you could adjust by fractions of an inch. Then it hit him. If you could see exactly where your shell struck and adjust instantly, you could land multiple shots in the same spot. Repeated stress on the same point. Fracture the armor, penetrate, kill. That night, under the dim flicker of a generator light, Hutchkins salvaged 4 lengths of baling wire from a supply crate. He welded them in a crosshair pattern around the Sherman's gun mantlet, upper left, upper right, lower left, lower right. When the gun fired, the muzzle flash would illuminate the wires for a split second, creating a glowing reference frame through which the gunner could track impact points and correct aim with precision. A field-manufactured targeting grid, it was brilliant. It was also completely illegal. Army regulations strictly forbade unauthorized modifications to combat vehicles. Punishment, up to 5 years in military prison. Hutchins didn't care. He wasn't trying to rewrite doctrine, he was trying to survive. At dawn, Sergeant Cordell and Corporal Samuel Blake discovered the modification. Cordell stared at the wires welded to his tank. "You modified my gun." "Not your gun," Hutchins said quietly. "Your crew." He explained the theory. 3 shots in the same spot could fracture even Tiger armor. The wire grid gave them the precision to do it. Cordell looked at Blake. Blake looked at the wire. Then Cordell grinned. "Fine, Nebraska. We'll try your farmer science at 2:47 p.m. Outside Bastogne, they got their test. The Tiger emerged across the snowy field, 1,400 yards. Blake fired. The round struck high and right of the Tiger's glacis plate. The wireframe glowed red for a fraction of a second. Blake saw exactly where the shell hit. He corrected, fired again. Low left, third shot, same aim point. The shell punched through. The Tiger stopped. Smoke poured from its turret. It was the first recorded frontal kill of a Tiger by a Sherman tank in the European theater. 4 minutes later, another Tiger appeared. Blake repeated the process. First shot high, second shot left, third shot center mass. Penetration, the Tiger burned, 2 Tigers destroyed. 0 American losses. The stupid wire trick worked. Word spread fast. By December 20th, 14 Shermans in the 9th Armored Division had copied the modification. Accuracy improved dramatically. Follow-up shot timing dropped by more than half. Engagement survivability skyrocketed. One crewman wrote in his diary, "We started calling it the farmer's grid. If you didn't have it, you were naked." In the next major engagement near Bastogne, the division's modified Shermans destroyed 8 Tigers while losing only 2 tanks. The kill ratio flipped. A battlefield miracle achieved not through superior engineering or industrial might, but through improvisation. A Nebraska farm boy with a welder had solved a problem that billions of dollars of American war production could unfix. By early January 1945, over 60 Shermans in Patton's Third Army had installed the wire grid. On January 8th, Lieutenant Colonel Crichton Abrams, commander of the 37th Tank Battalion, personally inspected the modified tanks. Abrams was a pragmatist. He'd lost men to Tigers. When he saw the results, he ordered the modification standardized across his entire battalion. He promoted Hutchins on the spot. "You can't teach courage," Abrams said, "but you can weld genius." The irony was staggering. American factories in Detroit and Lima could build tanks faster than anyone in history. 2,000 Shermans a month at peak output. But speed wasn't precision. The Germans built far fewer tanks, only about 1,350 Tigers total, yet each one was a masterpiece of over-engineering. The Allies compensated with numbers, coordination, and overwhelming air power, but not fire control innovation. What Hutchins did in a frozen Belgian field was bridge that gap. He gave the Sherman what it had always lacked: feedback with his wire grid. Gunners could correct aim by inches instead of yards. 3 shots became a calculated sequence rather than desperate hope. It turned the Sherman from prey into predator. By February 1945, the modification had spread across multiple divisions. Field reports credited it with reversing Tiger kill ratios across the Western Front. In March, General George S. Patton himself inspected the system during a Third Army review. He ordered its installation on all operational Shermans under his command. By April 1945, over 800 tanks carried the wire grid. The U.S. Ordnance Department eventually studied the design. Their report validated its effectiveness. But when the official documentation came through, something was missing. The paperwork credited field modifications by unit maintenance personnel. No individual names. The man who'd made it all possible had been erased by bureaucracy. Lieutenant Colonel Abrams protested. His report disappeared into filing cabinets. When Hutchins learned about it, he shrugged. "Aims don't stop shells," he said. "Steel does. That's enough." The wire trick did more than save Sherman crews. It proved something fundamental about war. Innovation doesn't come from laboratories or command centers. It comes from desperation. Every inch of frozen ground around Bastogne was a graveyard of doctrine. What survived wasn't official strategy. It was the mind of a farm mechanic who understood that even the hardest steel breaks under repeated stress, who saw a problem and solved it with baling wire and a welder. By war's end, American forces had destroyed more German armored vehicles than any other Allied army. But buried beneath those statistics are the quiet innovators, the ones who didn't wait for permission, the ones who welded survival into the machine when survival seemed impossible. Men like Dale Hutchkins. When the war ended, Hutchkins returned to Nebraska, back to fixing tractors, no medals, no ceremonies, no headlines. But every time he struck a glowing bead of weld, he must have remembered that frozen afternoon outside Bastogne, when a few scraps of wire and a farm boy's intuition turned a death sentence into a fighting chance. When ingenuity beat engineering, when desperation beat doctrine, because sometimes the smartest ideas look ridiculous until they save your life. Sometimes genius comes not from the engineer's blueprint, but from the mechanic's instinct. Sometimes history is made not by generals, but by farm boys who refuse to die quietly. Dale Hutchkins proved that war isn't won by the biggest guns or the thickest armor. It's won by the sharpest minds willing to break the rules when the rules will get you killed. The Tiger was a masterpiece. The Sherman was a compromise. But the wire grid was something else. It was the moment American pragmatism beat German precision. The moment improvisation trumped perfection. The moment a 22-year-old mechanic from Nebraska changed armored warfare forever with 4 pieces of wire and the courage to try something nobody else had thought of. That's the real story of Bastogne, not the generals, not the grand strategy, but the forgotten heroes who welded genius onto the battlefield when everything else had failed.